very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society.
You're in violation of secure communication procedures, Commodore.
So we just went ahead and fixed the glitch.
There is no America. There is no democracy.
Our fifth objective, a new world order.
There are no nations. There are no peoples. There are no Russians. There are no Arabs. There are no third worlds. There is no West.
Right-wing conspiracy.
What do you call it when the assassins accuse the assassin?
A new world order.
Thank you for plugging in to the Stones Unturned podcast.
Well, just a second there, Professor. We fixed the glitch.
I'm your host, Professor Thomas Henry Horan.
He reads everything.
Hello there, you lucky election day devils. You better bet your bippies he reads everything. Eventually. This may be the last. Is it 2020 yet? Is the election of 2020 over yet? Old anarchists never die. They just start YouTube channels. Well, the good news is the next members-only episode / premium episode is done. It is uploaded. It is processed. It is ready. Hi, Anthony. Pry yourselves away from the TV. A watched coup d'etat never boils. Netflix has a bunch of shallow documentaries out. There's one on 3 Mile Island, which doesn't explain what happened at all. But it does go a little bit into all the lying that took place on the part of the power company, the powerless regulatory agencies, the government. And then Jimmy Carter shows up. Remember, we had a president. You kids today, you and your iPhones and your study from home and your Trumps and your Kamalas, we had presidents who were baked in nuclear reactors, okay? Jimmy Carter could beat Donald Trump with one tentacle behind his back. He was an actual nuclear engineer. I'm not kidding. Nuclear Navy. He took a bunch of Navy nuclear students to Canada. They had a partial meltdown of a small reactor in Canada. Is he still alive? He's like 120. Radiation schmediation. Is an American politician. Born in 1924. He's 100 years old. He's very well preserved. He was twice baked in runaway nuclear reactors. We don't know what he did in the Navy. You think the Widowmaker was the nickname of a Soviet nuclear submarine. It was actually Jimmy Carter. You know, there's two ways of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is he couldn't walk in a room. Remember the UFOs, alien schmalians. Jimmy Carter saw UFOs. He went inside 3 Mile Island. They could have used it at Chernobyl. He was too radioactive. They wouldn't let him anywhere near Chernobyl because he was so radioactive, Jimmy Carter. They were afraid he'd start a chain reaction. The only American president to make it to 100. Only the good die young. Only the good die young. So, it's not bad, it's a little shallow. What happened at 3 Mile Island was sabotage. They don't mention that. There was sabotage. They didn't even really figure it out. They couldn't go inside for 20 years to see what really happened. But the thing about it is, and this is what I learned about risk management, and no one will listen. It's calculated risk doesn't mean I have a 78% chance of success and a 22% chance of failure. That's not what calculated risk means. Calculated risk means, what if I fail? If I fail, what are the consequences? If I back the wrong presidential candidate, I've wasted $20 on a hat. Oh. Remember, there's still time. The polls are still open in your state. Get out and vote several times for Kamala. I cannot bring down the one world government unless she's president. All my plans all depend on her being president of the United States. If Trump is president, it's like farting in a hurricane. There's anarchy, and then there's this is my Super Bowl, my World Cup. This is the last one, though. This is the last presidential election I'm even going to watch. You know, the next president will probably appoint 2 more Supreme Court justices and maybe 3. If Trump appoints 5 Supreme Court justices out of 9, who are they going to blame that on? The women? What if he wins? I think he's already won. Because I need her to be president in order to bring down the one world government. I don't know how much simpler I can explain that. Oh, I think Trump already won. He had a huge lead, and now they've been pretending ever since. See, once they stabbed Biden in the back, and if there's somebody who deserved to be stabbed in the back, probably the crookedest person who ever ran for president of the United States, let alone won. She's got no, she doesn't. She doesn't have, I haven't seen one Kamala hat. This is a college town. I haven't seen one Kamala hat, and I haven't seen one Kamala t-shirt. Not one. Did you see the polls from 2016? Did you see the polls from 2020? Thanks for trying to make it interesting, though. But I all 5 fingers are crossed. I need her to win. I can't bring down the one world government if Trump is president. You can't. It's like Black Friday. I can't get past. I'm over here working. I'm rubbing 2 sticks together. He's got atomic flamethrowers. Yeah, I think he already won. Trump had a huge lead, which isn't even supposed to happen. So it's like the Jets. Yes, the Jets might make it to the playoffs. Anything is hypothetically, mathematically possible. All the other teams could fold. The Cowboys could fold. The Cowboys should fold. But I really hope you're right. I'm not going to hold it against you if you're wrong, but I really need her to win. I need her to win in a landslide. See, the consequences are, if the women are 0-2 against Trump, what woman is ever going to run again? What other woman could ever run again? If a woman can't beat Trump, I don't know what to tell you. If a childless cat lady can't beat Trump, I don't know what this country's coming to. If a side chick can't beat Trump, I don't know what to tell you. We won't know for years who actually won the election. We don't know who won the 2020 election. But this is I'm retiring after this one. This is my last rodeo. I'm not going to be Aaron Rodgers. I don't know when to quit. Oh, if she doesn't win, I won't live long enough. I can't go another 4 years. I'm starting to get arthritis in my... I wrote in Richard Nixon. Mister, we could use a man like Richard Nixon to, yeah, let's see, you're thinking nickels and dimes. You're thinking peanuts, Anthony. I'm talking about bringing down the entire one world government. You can't bring down the New York Jets if Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback. They're already so far in the basement. There's no analogy. There's no analogy for Trump. You read about Nero, Caligula, Harry Truman, and you think, gee, it'd be a lot of fun to have one of those. Well, we've had one. Now he's coming back. He's Muhammad Ali. If he comes back, nobody did this before, right? Did John Quincy Adams do this or something? All I'm saying is, if a side chick, see, if she wins, then CNN, Ms. NBC, the New York Times, they all cease to exist because she has completely and entirely ignored them. They've tried to kiss her ass and it's not working. She won't speak to them. And if she wins this election, there's no way she's ever going to speak to a reporter ever again. So Gavin Newsom's 2028 presidential campaign begins in about 6 hours. That's another thing. The presidential election campaign isn't coming to a close. This is just the end of a quarter. This is just the end of an inning. It's continuous from now on. It's going to be Gavin Newsom. Who's going to run against Gavin Newsom? Anthony, it's a fool who looks for logic in the chambers. Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah, I'm sleeping through that one. I'm just sleeping through that one. When this election's over, it seems like a rerun. I'm not the kind of guy, I don't like to bathe in the same bathwater twice. You know what I'm saying? I saw the Bengals once. I don't need to see them again. I want somebody who doesn't even know how to make breakfast to be president of the United States. She doesn't even know how to go bankrupt. I mean, she's never done anything at all. She has never done anything. She's never done anything. She's never beaten a Republican opponent before. Yeah, I can't compete with Trump. Throwing out the baby and the bathwater. I don't need him stealing my spotlight. A big concern with Trump is he's getting old. She's never done anything at all. She hasn't even done that. She hasn't even gone bankrupt. She hasn't done anything. So enough about that. Tonight's premium episode is about Bryan Hartnell, which is a little boring. Sorry, he's a little boring. Of all the so-called Zodiac killer victims, there's really nothing very interesting about Bryan Hartnell or his family. A couple of things that are going to be a big deal. He might actually be an innocent bystander. He might actually be in the wrong place. Not Cecilia, but he might actually be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So, that's that. And then, so Saturday, I'm thinking Saturday, the next episode, this massive This thing just got massive. Arthur Lee Allen, his brother Ron Allen, their parents, Don Cheney, his brother and his parents, their wives, Ron Allen and Don Cheney's wives, and then Paul Avery, and then more Cecilia and Shepard. It might be Christmas by the time I get through that much. That's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. He's not related to the Clutter family. There's a possible connection, but it's not a close relative. It's Hartnell and Shepard are just thick on the ground in the Pacific Northwest. It's hard to tell one from another. So he seems to have been pretty boring, and his family are pretty boring. They're nothing like the Shepards as far as I could find out. But there were a few things about his grandpa and things that might... But it is looking more and more like Cecilia was the actual target and Bryan just happened to be there. Kind of thing. Maybe. All right, enough election talk. It doesn't matter anymore anyway. It's already over. This podcast isn't about taking sides. I'm a huge fan of Donald Trump. That doesn't mean I'm voting for him. It doesn't mean I'm voting against him. I'm a huge fan of Aaron Rodgers because, not because I think he's a great quarterback or a great human being. And by the way, his grandpa comes into this starting real soon. Aaron Rodgers' grandpa comes into this. I'm a huge fan. Workplace fail videos, I'm not joking. That's what I love. So I was really expecting him to be a much worse president than he was. I thought he actually did get elected by accident. So what I'm hoping is she, who can't even make breakfast, let alone, I can't wait till she's president of the United States. There will be no press conferences. Obama almost never gave any. She will give 0 press conferences. She's going to be, just when you thought Jimmy Carter was going to blow it all up, 3 Mile Island happens. That was a lucky coincidence. And then you have this president who's a nuclear engineer. Kennedy was doing okay, and then he got shot. So yeah. If it's chaos and anarchy and insanity, if it's Rick and Morty you're looking for. I love Rick and Morty because the president is half Obama, half Trump. I love that. If the women go 0-2, it's just going to be wonderful. So, yeah, that's not what this podcast is about anyway. That's not what this YouTube channel is about anyway. I come from a political family. You don't want to know why I voted for Jill Stein. You don't want to know that. Coke and Pepsi are the same thing, people. But I just like to watch. It's all about the handicapping. It's not about the chumps. Sorry, voters. It's not about them whatsoever. I love this idea of no primaries. The Democratic Party never wanted primary elections. They've never wanted primary elections, ever. That was forced down their throats after the 68 convention. They got their ticket without having a primary. This is what they have wanted since Hillary Clinton was the side chick. This is Marianne Edelman Wright's side chick. This is what they've wanted. Now, if they can just win this election, they will never have another. I think they'll abolish primary elections in the Democratic Party. They'll make sure that they don't matter at all anymore. She's never had to talk to a reporter. These scripted, edited interviews is all she is ever going to do, right? Trump's a threat to democracy, but Kamala Harris doesn't even talk to reporters. As a candidate, if she wins, CNN will cease to exist, CBS News will cease to exist, ABC News will cease to exist. They don't matter anymore anyway. They will just simply cease to exist. She will never give a press conference. ever. Everything's going to be done. It's like the man in the high castle. She's going to be the side chick in the high castle. It's all invisible. You don't see anything. There won't be any. You won't know what's going on at all. This is what I'm hoping for. You can't be an anarchist when anarchy is the government. Just doesn't work that way. I can't compete with Joe Rogan. How can I compete with Trump? She's never actually, her campaign says she's for this, she's against that. She doesn't say anything. I'm not talking about what policies she has or doesn't have. What I'm talking about is she never talks about them at all. She doesn't answer questions. She can't answer questions. You think Trump, it's just he's old hat. He's getting old. He's 78 and he's starting to show it. He's been shot. He's been Philip K. Dick was a great writer. He had a lot of great ideas. I don't know if he was a great writer. He certainly had some good ideas. Yeah, when she's president, it's going to be Logan's Run. She'll be the mother of the country. She's going to be Kim Jong Mom. Have you seen, that's the teenagers now bitching about their moms and discipline. It's Kim Jong Mom. Yeah. She'll be Kim Jong Mom. Where was I? So this episode about Bryan and Cecilia is it's about Bryan. It's a little boring, but you got to sit through it. We have to eliminate all all possibilities. So who knows? Maybe it's just that there's just a bigger secret about that or something. Yeah, may you live in interesting times. Yeah, I'm just getting too old to enjoy it. This is my last presidential election. I'm going to give a flying fuck about it. All I know is if Trump wins, he better make himself dictator or I want my money back. Because I've heard for all these years about how he's a threat to democracy and he's going to be a dictator. Blah, 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 blah. He's a threat to the Cheneys. He's a threat to the Clintons. He's a threat to Lockheed. He's a threat to he's a threat to Zelensky, who canceled elections and his term as president has expired. Nobody's complaining about that, not even Fox News. So he better make himself dictator. Or I'm going to be really mad. I'm keeping receipts. But there's absolutely no point in showing you all the stuff I have on her if she's not president of the United States. She has to be president of the United States in order for me to bring down the one world government. Otherwise, you people are just going to have to enjoy your Coke and your Pepsi. I don't know what to tell you. You've read, you know Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? Trump is Zaphod Beeblebrox, and his only job is to distract attention away from the people who actually run the galaxy. All the stuff about Montreal, all the stuff about the QLF, all the stuff about the Chinese Communist Party and the KGB will be worthless if she doesn't win. All this stuff about Hollyweird will be worthless if she's not president of the United States. Don't you understand? Well, why isn't he dictator now? I want my money back on all these dictators. Remember when George W. Bush was a dictator? Well, they've all endorsed Kamala Harris. So, you know, what I'm saying is if she's not president, I can't take down the one world government. It's like World War II. It was all about Hitler. The propaganda is Hitler, Hitler, Hitler. Well, there are these serious attempts. So there are these cabals who are like, well, if we get rid of Hitler, we can keep what we've got and end the war. So you have MI6 and the OSS actually betraying these assassination attempts on Hitler, because if Hitler's dead, they lose their excuse for prosecuting the war. Because they box themselves into this corner. It's all Hitler, Hitler, Hitler. Well, if Hitler's dead, then the war's over, right? And Truman really wanted to go that way. When FDR said unconditional surrender, nobody was happy. Nobody was happy. Churchill was not happy. General Marshall was not happy. Nobody was happy. And Truman tried to get out of expecting Japan to actually surrender. He tried and tried and tried. See, all the operations where Americans were dying had all been authorized by FDR. The first, including the bombing, the dropping of the first 2 atomic bombs, those had already been authorized by FDR. Truman's hands were clean. Truman wanted to end the war before he had to authorize any more offensive operations, including dropping any more atomic bombs. But not just that. Operation Olympic, Operation... He did not want to even authorize the invasion of Kyushu to see if the bomb worked or not. And General Marshall said, we can't wait that long. You have to say go or no go. The system will just break if we don't keep going. So he had to authorize the invasion of Kyushu. He didn't want to. He wanted to be the president of peace, not the president of war. He didn't want to have anything to do with any more American casualties whatsoever. People don't understand that. He wanted a way out of demanding unconditional surrender from Japan. He didn't want that at all. He wanted to just negotiate a peace. He just wanted a negotiated peace. I don't know if he was loathsome. Hate to disappoint you, Shane, but I think Trump's going to win, and it's just breaking my heart because I really need Kamala to win. Because she can't win. She's not going to run again in 2028. She got too many grandchildren to look after. So enough about that. By Saturday, we should have a pretty good idea. I need her to postpone the certification of the election. I need her to postpone the inauguration. I need her to be president of the United States. Otherwise, none of this is going to work. Otherwise, this is just a trivia channel. But this episode about Bryan is done. It's got some interesting stuff that you need to know it. Then Saturday, it's going to be either start with Arthur Lee. It might actually, believe it or not, it might start with Paul Avery, because Paul Avery is 10 times more important than I've even hinted around about. So it might start with Paul Avery. The problem is, I don't even care about 2028. The problem is, you could run Jimmy Carter versus Hillary Clinton, and I would not even look at it. Paul Avery might actually be Paul Avery's dad and Jim Morrison's dad might be more important than JFK. That's another thing. See, you people watch the propaganda. You think of JFK as this great president. He was this great liberal, blah, 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 blah. He was a sock puppet, and that's all he was. The only thing he ever did was get shot. But we'll talk about that later. That's right. That's right. Not just any admiral either. So sit through tonight just to distract yourself. For God's sake, don't stay up late waiting for results to come in. It's stupid. It's like sitting around waiting for Aaron Rodgers to make the playoffs. Just wait till the season's over and check and see. No, they didn't make the playoffs. Just tune it out until sometime in February when they decide that they're going to admit you know who won. In the meantime, don't waste. If you're waiting for your trial to come up, and if you're waiting for this election to be over, you just go about your lives. And don't worry about it. So as soon as I'm done here, on both the old website and the YouTube members, as soon as I'm done, you guys can watch I'll release the episodes. Release the episode. And then Saturday, I'm just having a really hard time figuring out which slice of the pizza to start with. So you guys, you're going to have to start taking notes. I've shown you nothing up until now. It's really, 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 really starting on Saturday. So get plugged in. I was going to wait till after Christmas, but too many people are already signing up, so to give you your money's worth. And then there are more episodes of the Lindbergh, the phony kidnapping of the Lindbergh baby coming your way too, that you still haven't seen. You ain't seen nothing yet. But the hard part for me is done for a while. I've got to take it easy for most of the month of December. But I've got all the slides done. It's a question of shuffling them and putting them in some kind of order so you can see. It's like every slide, then there's like, this slide hits 24 other cases, let alone episodes. Then there's a slide, and then that comes right back to this thing again. And that goes over to this next episode. So that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. You're going to have to take a lot of notes, to be honest with you. The homework starts now. You've seen the syllabus. Now it's time to start doing the homework. Oh. I just wish Lee Harvey Oswald were alive to see this. I just wish Arthur Bremer were alive to see this. Oh, I forgot to mention the other night, the last live stream. There is a documentary. It's shallow, but it's a great place to start. Netflix has a documentary about Martha Mitchell, the wife of Nixon's Attorney General, John Mitchell. Start with that, because you know nothing about Martha Mitchell. Watch that documentary. You'll be sitting there, I know what you'll be thinking. This sounds familiar. She sounds like somebody I know. Watch it. I'll tell you right now. Martha Mitchell was the Charles Manson of Watergate. She was the shiny. Hey, look at me. I'm Martha Mitchell. Look at me. She was the Charles Manson and Gypsy Cher combined of Watergate. Watch it. Watch it. Because in the not too distant future, remember, Nixon had just been sworn in as president in January of 1969, and all of this stuff starts to happen. This does have a lot to do with him. This has a lot to do with, Nixon was somebody else who, he had a lot of qualifications for president, but he never really ran anything. He He'd never been a governor. He'd never run a corporation. He'd been a lawyer. He was a lawyer and a vice president. He never ran anything. He was super smart, super qualified to be, foreign policy. But it was so easy. He made so many amateur mistakes because he'd never run anything before. Even Ronald Reagan had more experience running California than Nixon ever had as vice president. As foreign policy, he got to meet all the foreign leaders and da-da-da-da-da. Graduated second in his class from Duke University Law School, international law, blah, 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 blah. But he was too easy. It was too easy to get him going, and then authorizing this stuff. So Operation Chaos and all this stuff that had been kind of on the back burner. Because what you don't understand is there's a war between the Special Operations Group and the CIA. Have you noticed? The CIA, for a very long time, the company intelligence agency, was basically run by Republicans. And the Democrats, going back to FDR, had special forces, the OSS. And FDR had his own personal spooks You know nothing. So from that time on, the CIA is really, it's like in the Soviet Union, it was KGB versus GRU, the military intelligence versus the KGB. And before that, it was NKVD. Over here, you got GRU. In the United States, it's CIA versus Green Berets, if you want to summarize them as Green Berets. So Nixon comes in, and he's all these programs put on the back burner, like Chaos, COINTELPRO, and all this other stuff. He really gives them a bright green light and is kicking their asses to get out there and get some of the stuff done. That's why it mushrooms so rapidly, is Nixon. And it's no coincidence this stuff is going on. It begins in December of 68. Charles Manson was going to be Diddy or whatever, and in December of 68, when Nixon's the winner of the presidential election, all of a sudden it's all about helter-skelter. And it isn't just Nixon. It's not just Nixon. It's all of this stuff. And then he's inaugurated. And then, so watch the documentary about Martha Mitchell. It's very shallow, but it's interesting because she's going to come up. If Nixon had more experience, Nixon's big failure was he was very good at bypassing the system. That's not the same thing as changing the system. Because as soon as they got him out of office, talk about political assassination, talk about a coup d'etat. Not that he wasn't, once again, I'm not saying he wasn't guilty. I'm saying he was framed. Hoist on his own Peter, as you might say. Hoist on his own petard. The establishment is right back firmly in control. And that's the problem. You need a president who changes the system. Bypassing the deep state won't work, and you can't get rid of it. You can't get rid of the Japanese knotweed in your yard. All you can do is you can genetically modify it. That's all you can do with messenger RNA vaccines. That's all you can do is change the system. And Nixon completely failed to do that. The Cold War would have been over 20 years sooner if Nixon hadn't shot himself in the foot. And he didn't even really, technically, wasn't really his. Watergate had nothing to do with Nixon. But it just, the chickens all came home to roost. Secret Honor? I haven't seen that one. Have you guys seen the report? That's supposed to be pretty good. I think Oliver Stone's movie about Nixon is not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's a true tragic, he's a true tragic hero. He has a tragic flaw. The simple, obvious tragic flaw for the movie purposes is he couldn't take any criticism. He couldn't take any criticism. George W. Bush, by contrast, took all the criticism. I loved him. He just shrugged it off. It's a hard job. Somebody has to make the tough decision. Somebody has to take all the blame. There's something to be said about that. He just shrugged off the criticism. Abraham Lincoln put how many journalists in prison? Newspaper editors, how many went to prison? At least briefly. Threw them in jail briefly. Shut down their newspapers. How many? 1,600 something? 2,600? Journalists thrown in jail? No trial? No habeas corpus? You know nothing about Bob Woodward. You know nothing about. But Martha Mitchell, I'm watching it going, aha. Because the company works for the establishment. They didn't work for Nixon. The company did not work for Nixon. The company was not happy with Nixon. The company got rid of Nixon. Same way they got rid of JFK. Same way they got rid of, they're trying to get rid of Trump. Trump doesn't work for the company. You do understand this, right? He is a threat to the company. You saw that the company 100% endorsed Kamala Harris loudly. He's a threat to the company. That doesn't make him a hero. Makes him my hero. But it doesn't make him a hero. Hi, Channel. Yeah, that's right, Channel. That's right. We will talk about Guido Fawkes. I'll talk about him again. And I'll talk about the Stuarts. And I will talk about the Jacobites. I got Jacobites in my family. What can I say? My mother's family were crypto Jews. My father's family were Jacobites. What can I say? We are political prisoners. We were transported to America. My ancestors were kicked out of every decent country in Europe. They were all political refugees, and that didn't go away overnight. Not as bad as being black in terms of consequences of my life personally, but, you know, you see the flag of Stones Unturned Podcast Nation, right? You see our flag color, right? I don't advocate violence. Suicide bombing is so 5 minutes ago. The violence is up here. The chaos and anarchy must be up here. You must break the chains up here. As the late, great Malcolm X said, as the late, great Spinoza said, the chains are all up here. Chains are all up here. Well, Guido Fawkes did his part. That's a fascinating story. That is a fascinating story. It's a fascinating story. Yeah, there's so much. You know nothing about Guy Fawkes, right, channel? They know nothing about Guy Fawkes. They know nothing about the gunpowder plot. Yeah, you talk about disinfo prop. You talk about Charles Manson. Well, Guido Fawkes was he's Carlos the Jackal, not Carlos Slater the drug runner. I'm talking about the phony, the Charles Manson of international terrorism. That was kind of Guy Fawkes, right? That was kind of Guy Fawkes. He was all hype. He was a popcorn spook. Guido Fawkes, Guy Fawkes, his name's Guido Fawkes. Guido Fawkes was a popcorn terrorist, like the Jackal. The movie Day of the Jackal, the original, is fabulous. Fabulous film. But the real Jackal was a popcorn terrorist. He was Charles Manson. V for Vendetta? Secret Honor. Yeah, I thought Oliver Stone's Nixon was okay. I think it captured the spirit of the man and blah, 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 blah. Right. Didn't make him out to be some kind of Trump, this evil dictator. A popcorn spook is somebody who, it's like a popcorn pimp. A popcorn pimp is a nickel and dime hustler who plays the role of a pimp, right? But he's not. Charlie was but he wasn't a popcorn pimp. He wasn't your stereotypical pimp. The Players Ball, all of these hip hop artists, except maybe Biggie, were popcorn pimps. They play the movie role. They are in the underworld. They are breaking laws, okay, but they're not really pimps. But they wear the clothes. They play the stereotype of the pimp. That's a popcorn pimp. So a popcorn spook is somebody like Bob Nichols, who did work for the company, obviously, but mainly playing the role of spook. Like an actual case officer, an actual Foreign Service officer, you're not going to know their names. They're not going to come out in public. You're not going to know who the hell they are. And they don't directly get their hands dirty so much. They hire spooks. A spook is somebody who appears to be, look at people that you know, like Barry Seal. Look at people you know of, like Craig Glassman. A spook is somebody who appears to be just a criminal, but he's really working for the company or he's really working for an intelligence agency. Are you with me? In the movie, in the original BBC miniseries, Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy, there's Budus. Budus is Budus. He He's leading a delegation of engineers and technical experts in Portugal. It's kind of like the Organian peace treaty thing, where the Federation and the Klingons are competing over who can develop a planet better. So the Soviet Union's doing this in Portugal, and the United States, the West is doing it in Portugal, competing for the favor and see whose system works better. So Boris shows up. He's a popcorn spook. He's going around acting like he's for sale. Okay. And then his wife actually knows something, and then this is a major part of the plot. So somebody like Bob Nichols, Ted Gunderson is a popcorn spook. Oh, I'm former FBI, and I'm telling you all these secrets. I'm revealing all of these secrets. George W. Bush was a real spook. A spook is somebody who's pretending not to be, and maybe is not, he's not an official agent of the U.S. government. James Bond is a popcorn spook. Oh, look, I'm a spook. Look at me, everybody. I'm a spook. That's a popcorn spook. Somebody who's actually working for the company. An imposter, a con artist who pretends to be a spook or something, like Jeffrey Epstein. He's not a spook, but he has friends in the company, obviously. Operated by spooks. Bill Casey was a spook. Bill Casey was a civilian campaign manager for Ronald Reagan, who was later on appointed chief of all spooks, but he was a spook the whole entire time. Who else? There are others. I'm going to accuse Manny's dad of being a spook. Somebody who's pretending to be a lefty journalist and PR man, but who is actually working for the company, not necessarily drawing a paycheck from the CIA inside of the State Department, not necessarily drawing a government check, but somebody who's in that gray area, somebody who pretends to be like Barry Seal. We may never really know about Barry Seal. We'll never know everything about Barry Seal. But Bob Nichols was a big-time popcorn spook. There's others. My mind has gone blank. You guys know who I'm talking about. Hi, Gary. Well, they're the genuine article, except that their primary role is to play the role of spook. Jose Cuellar, who shows up in this octopus documentary. He's a popcorn spook. He works for the company. He was military, blah, 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 blah. He mainly did PSYOPs. So a lot of these guys come from PSYOPs. F. Red Howard Hunt was a popcorn spook. See, it's like Watergate. Like, how did they get caught again? Right, are you with me? He was kind of a popcorn spook. But a spook is somebody who pretends not to be a spook, but you find out is a spook. A popcorn spook is a spook who is loudly playing the role of spook. And lets it go to his head, probably. Like Boris. Boris in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. He's a popcorn spook. Carla is a spook. Well, he's not a spook. He's an actual government agent. Well, in Smiley's People, Grigoriev is a spook, but not by choice. He's pretending to be he's a lawyer. He's an international lawyer. He's counselor to a trade delegation in Switzerland, but he's secretly working for Carla. He's secretly working for the 13th Directorate. That's a spook. They might have a government job. They might be in private industry. George Bush was a spook. Who else? Who's a real spook? You know who I'm talking about. It turns out later they're working for the CIA, but when they come out and go, "Hey, I work for the CIA," and the Hunter Biden laptop is Russian disinfo, that's a popcorn spook. That's a spook who is loudly playing the role of a spook. And it comes from Popcorn Pimp, somebody who's telling everybody he's a pimp, and he's kind of a pimp. But he's not really. He's just a very minor. Right. So Barry Seal was at least, he was not an official employee of the company intelligence agency or anything like that, but he was very spooky. But he's more of an operator who has contacts in the mob, contacts in the CIA contacts and whatever, and becomes something of a popcorn spook, kind of in self-defense, right? Very interesting person. Very interesting person. Somebody who, an actual Foreign Service officer, they can't really be a spook because that is their job, to be doing what they're doing. But a spook is somebody who, they're covert. They are covertly, they are covertly working for an intelligence agency. That's a spook. But they're not telling anybody that that's what they're doing. There are some. There's some famous ones that you know of that kind of came out later. But a popcorn spook's job is to get out there and, like, I would call, Charles Manson was a popcorn terrorist. The Jackal was a popcorn terrorist. He was a terrorist. He committed crimes, but his primary role was to play the role of terrorist. And agent provocateur is a popcorn spook. That they're out there to get attention, that kind of thing. Colonel Hogan is a spook. He's a colonel in the United States Air Force. He doesn't work for the OSS, but obviously he's a spook. Colonel Hochstetter's not a spook. He tells you, he flashes his ID. I work for Geheim Staatspolizei. I work for the Gestapo. That's not a spook. If they're honest about who they are, if they flash their ID, they're not a spook. But if they're flashing their ID, hey, everybody, look at me, I'm a spook. That's a popcorn spook. William Harvey? Can you elaborate on, can you refresh my memory? I gotta get off here in a second. My dinner's in the oven. And I'm gonna let you guys see the new episode. Oh, I got 10 minutes. Who was William Harvey? But these cases are so full of popcorn spooks. They come complete with popcorn spook. Ted Gunderson. That's a popcorn spook. He's working for the company, but he's playing the role. He's a distraction. He's disinfo. He's misinfo. He's malinfo. Fine. Which William Harvey? William Harvey. There's got to be more than one. You're talking about back in the day? English physician who made influential contributions. Right, that's a spook. John Dee was a spook. Right? And these aren't dictionary definitions. This is just, there were people who I've met, worked with, come across, who, anybody you ever meet who shoots his mouth, oh, I used to work for the CIA. If he's either a Garrett trooper, right, or he's a popcorn spook. Anybody who claims that they did all this stuff, that's a popcorn spook. Movie. They're playing up that role. They're really playing it up. William Harvey was a spook. John Dee was a spook. There were a lot of spooks. Christopher Marlowe was a spook. That's right, Channel. That's exactly right. So you have Guido Fawkes, who's a spook, but his role in all this is a popcorn spook. He's Charles Manson. He's the Charles Manson of the gunpowder plot. He had done revolutionary things. He was something of a terrorist. But in this case, you're right. That is so much more. He is, dare I say it, the Lee Harvey Oswald of the gunpowder plot. Oswald's a spook. He's a double spook. He's also a popcorn spook. But he's not going on, like, he's not doing Ed Butler's radio show saying, I work for the CIA and I'm telling you all these terrible things. He's covertly working for, or the company thinks he's working for them, or the KGB thinks he's working for them, or whatever. That's a spook. Barry Seal's a spook, kind of. See, if you heard about them, they're not really spooks. See, they're kind of invisible. And they keep their cover. They are undercover. If it's an actual government agent, an actual employee of a government intelligence agency working undercover, that's a spook. Does that make sense? Whereas somebody who flashes their badge, I'm a foreign service officer and I'm here to carry out policy for the United States government, that's not a spook. They're being upfront about who they are. Well, Frank Sturgis, right, supposedly private, right, he never officially an employee of the CIA, right? Who was the guy who, there were 5 of them busted at Watergate. Dick Cheney, Vice President of the United States and all this other crap, he's a spook. Spook for the company. But that's what popcorn spook means. Somebody who's making a big, loud, yeah, he's in the business, but he's playing the role of big mouth spy. Does that make any sense? David Hackworth, maybe. Kind of a popcorn spook. Spook for sure, but he's always flapping his gums, he's always spreading disinfo. Does that make any sense? I'm accusing Hal Snook of being a spook. He's a deputy sheriff, he's a newspaper editor, but he's really working for the company. He's really working for the company. That's a spook. Whereas Anthony Poshepny's not a spook because everybody knows he's a foreign service officer. Right? He never hides the fact he's a foreign service officer. That's not really a spook. He's managing spooks. He's operating spooks and that kind of thing. But he's not really a spook. He's a foreign service officer. Does that make any sense? Just because you work for the CIA, you're not a spook. If you're pretending that you don't work for the CIA because you're working for Microsoft or whatever, then you're a spook. Does that make any sense whatsoever? That's opposed to a contact, an asset, an operative, or an operator. You know, in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, the real spook, the only real spook in that group is Toby Esterhazy, who no one is supposed to know he's an officer in MI6. No one's supposed to know he works for the British government directly. He's drawing a paycheck. He has an officer's rank. He's going to get a pension. But his whole cover is he's an operator. He's a big-time Charles Manson. Import, export, surveillance, he's for hire. He's an operator for hire. Barry Seal is basically an operator. There are other operators. Philip Arthur Thompson is an operator. He's trafficking weapons, drugs, everything else. And Bill Casey's company plugs into him. They do business with him. There are cutouts in between. But he's not officially a government employee. Toby Esterhazy is the only real spook that you see on the British side in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. No one's supposed to know that he works for the government. Not even people in the government are supposed to know. Remember the character of Sam, he's a spook, but he works in embassies, you know, that kind of thing. He doesn't even know Toby Esterhazy. Remember? Sam doesn't even know Toby Esterhazy until Bill Hayden introduces them. Toby Esterhazy is supposed to be just a crooked businessman. Or when you watch Smiley's People, Kretschmer, the Saxon, he looks like the King of Hearts from the deck of cards. That's what Saxons look like. He runs the X-rated nightclubs and the pornography ring and stuff like that. He's not a spook. He's an operator. Because he's not officially an employee of any of those governments. He's an operator. That's what Toby Esterhazy is supposed to be. That's how they know him. But Toby Esterhazy is a spook. He's very deep cover. Very, very, very deep cover. Lansdale's not a communist? That's exactly what I mean by being a communist channel. He sabotaged American foreign policy by supporting DM. I will show all. And yes, he had a commie background, and so did his boss. That's cover. That's double agent. That's the second most effective double agent. The most effective double agent was James Jesus Angleton. See, you've been fooled by their cover. That's a very good double agent. Very good double agent. Now, was Castro a spook? I think he was. Spook, but then he becomes a double agent. Was Batista? What was he? Well, not Batista. Noriega was a spook. Bin Laden, spook. Supposedly went rogue. To a certain extent, Bin Laden was a popcorn double agent, popcorn terrorist. He didn't really do much except make videos and raise money. He's the Charles Manson of Al-Qaeda. Al-Zawahiri is still on the loose, right? They never did. Did they ever get him? Did he die of old age? Bernard Barker? Who's Bernard Barker? See, I'm more interested in the popcorn spooks. Watergate burglar. Undercover operative. See, most of those guys were not necessarily... They're getting funding from the CIA. Those are just assets. Those are just contacts. Those are just... They hire operators to get... Mark Turry is an operator. JFK threw DM under the bus? Oh, I would say it's the other way around. But we'll see. We'll come to that. We'll come to all that. We'll come to Lansdale. We'll come to James Jesus Angleton. The guy in Tom O'Neill's book, which one? But yeah, channel, stay plugged in, buddy. We will come around to, the phony gunpowder plot. Talk about false flag, right? Is that the original false flag? No, it's not. But it always comes back to the company. And they have their little script that they follow. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, well, I'm going to let you guys go. I'm going to eat my din-din. Stay safe. Stay well. Take good care of each other. Yeah, this episode is going to be of some interest to you. Did I mention Baha'i? Please take your cannibals to the polling place, have them vote for Kamala, then have them spayed and neutered. Please. I'm Professor Thomas Henry Horan, asking you to please stay plugged in to the Stones Unturned podcast.
He reads everything.
Oh, you better bet your bippies he reads everything. Good night, folks.